I'm not going to sugarcoat this, but if you're still watching porn in 2025, you are ruining your life, actually. So in this video, I'm going to explain 5 truths about porn that's going to help you look at porn differently so that you don't even want to watch porn anymore for the rest of your life. I want you to just picture something for a few seconds. Imagine you're 45 years old and you still watch porn, you're still masturbating, you don't have a wife, you don't even have kids, you never got married, and you just live alone in your apartment with nothing but yourself. You do the same routine every single day of just waking up, going to the gym, coming back, cooking food, going to work, and you're depressed, you don't have any social life, you haven't done anything meaningful. How does that feel? Would you be actually willing to settle for that? You gotta ask yourself this question right now. Now, look, things will even get worse. Now, here's the issue. For the past few years, that's what you've been probably doing, right? Just like most people, we all fell for the message of the porn industry that tricked our mind to believe certain lies that are currently destroying our lives. And so I'm about to expose these 5 different tricks so that you can really break the illusion and effortlessly move on from porn. But before that, I want you to do a quick exercise. Visualize yourself being in the worst case scenario if you keep on watching porn. Ask yourself, where are you? What kind of man did you become? What did you lose? What does your day to day look like? Visualize this for a few seconds and then open your eyes. Psychologically, it is very important to make yourself feel the worst case scenario so that you can create a reason why unconsciously to not be in that worst case scenario as you know how it would feel. Here's the first message from the porn industry that you need to be aware of so that you can break free. The porn industry has told you that porn can serve as a medical band-aid to your emotional problems. How do you know? Well, when you are on these sites, there are common advertisements that directly tells you you're lonely. Well, there are so many videos like these. There are women near you that want to engage in intimacy with you. Now, what happens to your mind is you see those messages, and as you watch porn, you get told that this is what you're going to expect. And if that's what you're going to expect, then just like a placebo, you're probably going to feel it, right? Because emotions are a product of whatever we think. They come from our cognitive and then we feel them. So, what you want to realize is that porn will never ever solve a single bit of loneliness. All that happens on a psychological level is that you distract yourself. And when you're distracted, then all that's happening is you're not thinking about whatever problem or whatever pain you're facing. It's not that porn has some special chemicals that just solves your loneliness. That's not the case. Just like, for example, there are many people that decides to distract themselves when they feel lonely through drugs, through sports, through mutilating themselves, literally, and so many other things. So don't fall for that lie. Now, the second thing is, since we live in an over-sexualized society, you probably fell for the message that not only came from the porn industry and the sexual wellness industries marketing, but from our society nowadays in many different industries, such as the music industry, the movie industry, the social media industry, and that is that they've actually made lust your god. What do I mean by that? Nowadays, people base their level of confidence, their level of worthiness for themselves based on their sexual activity. We think that if we abstain until marriage, even if we're religious, we think that if we abstain until marriage, that we are apparently losers that just don't have any form of confidence. And so, because of that, we start attaching so much personal meaning to lust, to sex. We think day in and day out about sex. The reason is that we think unconsciously, and this is the key thing. We've been fed these messages for so long. We think unconsciously, well, if you're good at having sex, for example, then the woman will be pleasured, and that means you'll finally be a man. You'll finally be someone who has masculinity, which is a message you probably got from the red pill, right? The red pill also told you, for example, that if you sleep around with as many women as possible, then you're a high value man. And also, you've grown up watching movies from people like James Bond, from other masculine characters in these movies where you want to be like the main character as he is the protagonist. And one of the components of this character, one of his characteristics is that he's good with women. He sleeps with them. He's good at having intercourse with them. And so this is another message you've been fed. And on top of that, you have nowadays the hip hop industry, or even just music in general, that puts an emphasis on sex and how they constantly brag about how they're having sex the same way they brag about them being successful, them having money, them being confident, and so many other things. And so there's something you need to do right now, and that is to simply ask yourself, what is objectively more important than sex? And then from that answer, I want you to ask yourself again, can I be confident and masculine even though I don't put sex or my sexual activity as something important in my life? And you'll see your life will change once you answer those questions. Now, the third trick, the third problem is something which you've been fed from society and the porn industry, and that is to love being distracted. When Caesar, a very well-known historical figure, wanted to be successful in his own terms, meaning he wanted to pursue certain things that were big, right? Taking power over Rome, being able to go to wars and capture so many different regions. Caesar had a moment before that where he saw a statue of Alexander the Great. Now, Caesar was in his 30s, and Alexander the Great pretty much achieved a lot by the age of 26. He pretty much achieved everything that Caesar wanted by the age of 26. And Caesar, thinking about that and seeing the statue, literally fell down on his knees and started to be very emotional. He started crying because he was angry at himself for not having achieved much, right? Now, here's the thing. Caesar didn't just say, oh, let me go and distract myself so that I don't feel these negative emotions within me, because that's not good for me, because that's not good for my mental health. There wasn't such things back then, right? People might have done it unconsciously, but it wasn't as prominent. Now, here's the thing. Caesar used that moment, those negative emotions, and went on and became an historical figure after that. He went on and pursued and took the risk and everything, right? Many people in our day-to-day life, not only do they distract themselves with social media, scrolling, video games, food, going out, and so many things, whenever they feel something negative or whenever they face a problem in their day-to-day, they go and distract themselves. And so what happens is, imagine you have one problem or one goal, right? And you're like, you know what? Today I'm feeling unwell. This happened in my life, so I'm feeling negative. I'm going to go and distract myself to not feel those emotions. And then tomorrow maybe I'll tackle it. And tomorrow maybe I'll solve this problem or pursue this goal. What happens? You probably know. Today you're probably not going to do it. Tomorrow you're probably not going to do it. And then the day after you're probably not going to do it. And then the day after that you're probably not going to do it. The weeks, the months, the years. I've personally talked to hundreds of guys now, right? A lot of them in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Not to put them down, right? But you can tell that they haven't done anything with their lives that they wanted to, right? And when I talk about that, I don't just mean in terms of goals or career or fitness or whatever. I mean in the whatever important aspects of their lives. And so here's the moral of this story. If you never face reality, then reality will never change, right? We've grown up in a society where we place value on comfort and easy stuff and feeling well, when in reality, if you do understand psychology, then you do understand that you can actually make pain enjoyable. You can actually make the challenges and problems something you look forward to. You might think I'm lying, but this is something that you can actually do and that most people don't even know about. And you need to face that reality. You need to ask yourself, what happens if I don't take action? Because look, the way that a lot of people are going about their lives, especially when I see people that have been struggling with porn for decades, is they'll never ever even be able to build a family and have kids. And you need to be willing to accept that this is going to be likely the scenario that's going to happen if you don't take action. And don't just mean when it comes to quitting porn, but what I mean is when it comes to facing reality. Because naturally, as human beings, just like when I gave the example of Caesar, when you do face reality, you'll be forced to take action. You'll be forced to do something in order to feel better. You'll be forced to plan to solve that problem. You'll be forced to think of a solution. You'll be forced to take an action that maybe you never took before, to take a certain risk that will actually probably most of the time propel your life forward. And when I say propel your life forward, you're gonna achieve way more and improve way more and progress way more just with that one risk or that one action that you're going to be forced to take than if you were to wait for months before taking proper action. And the worst thing about all of this is you know that you're doing something that goes against God, yet you try to hide from that reality. You need to really embrace that and you'll see your life will truly change. So stop believing in this message from the porn industry as well as the society that this is something valuable to hide from reality and escape. And please don't just make this video or another video you're watching and you go to another video to try to improve yourself just by watching videos. No, it should be the other way around. This should be the last or one of the last videos you'll ever watch. And then you'll take action, right? Or else, I'm gonna repeat this, you're gonna have to be willing to settle for the life that you've been always living, because nothing is going to change. And you've been told that many times, but nothing is going to change. A day where you procrastinate on changing is going to turn into a year because it happened to you multiple times before. So there's nothing that's going to happen. You're going to be in the same state. So it's better to just accept that you're going to be in the same state and be like, you know what, I'm happy being where I am right now. Let me just keep being like this. And I'm saying this in a sort of a passive aggressive way to make you realize that you need and you can change. Okay, so ask yourself right now, what is one action that I can take today that will drastically change the trajectory of my life forever? And go and do that action. For me personally, traveling was such a huge thing. Living overseas whilst keeping my routine, I changed more in 3 months of traveling than doing 3 years of self-improvement in my room, constantly trying to just learn, work out, and do the same routine every day. Now the fourth thing is porn creates this mindset that you can only fantasize about something and not actually get the real thing. What is porn, first of all? Porn is you watching a video where you fantasize over it, meaning you visualize yourself having intercourse the same way that they're having intercourse in the video. If you were to really be aware and mindful whilst you're watching these videos, that's what's happening essentially. And this is coming from me that has been coaching for people for multiple years now. But a big problem that I see when I first start coaching people, when they join my coaching program, is that they use porn because they essentially believe that they can't have real intercourse. And when I say real intercourse, obviously I'm talking about within marriage, right? Because the people I coach are men of faith. But we've been tricked into believing that that fantasy, you visualizing yourself having sex, is almost equivalent to sex, and it gives you a taste of real sex, and that's the only solution you'll have for now. And so what happens is people make zero progress towards being married, zero progress towards building themselves up in a way that will allow them to get married, because they're getting this quick taste of it, if that makes sense. And so they just start fantasizing over it rather than actually doing it. And the saddest part of all of this is not necessarily just the fantasy and watching porn, is that people delay, for example, being married until they are so old, and because of that they might fall into many sins, and they just feel desperate for love, intimacy, connection, and it never happens. So the biggest problem here is you are just fantasizing, visualizing yourself doing those things, which means you're delaying you doing those things in real life, if that makes sense. And again, within marriage, obviously. Now the last thing is that porn is not pleasurable. Now, of course, if you've been watching my videos, you know about the fact that you can actually detach pleasure from porn. But most people struggle with that, okay? Most people struggle understanding that, right? With the people I've coached, has been something that we've tackled successfully. But here's the thing. The porn industry's message makes you believe that Porn is essentially the highest form of pleasure that you can get in life, and nothing can compare to it. And it's instant gratification. That's why it's so appealing. And that's a whole lot of crap, okay? Let me explain why. Most people that watch porn and then try to quit porn, they often have one common denominator, right? And it's not to put them down, because I used to be in the same exact spot, okay? Doing the same exact things. But that same denominator is essentially they are in their rooms. They barely go out, they barely travel, they barely meet new people, they barely start projects, they barely even work on themselves, they barely even go to the gym, and they just do their routine every single day in their house. It's like they don't experience anything new. And so because of that, they fall into this message from the porn industry, which is porn is the only way to get real pleasure, and a lot of pleasure, and a huge amount of pleasure. When in reality, if they were to just step out of their house and do something drastically different from what they're doing in their day to day, they'll see that pleasure is abundant in many other places. And not only abundant, but you'll experience pleasure with so many different other things on a higher level. You really think that porn is the most pleasurable thing on earth when you can travel the world, when you can build a project where you impact people's lives, or that you can help your loved ones? You really think porn can compare to that pleasure? You think porn can compare to the pleasure of having a good workout where you push yourself? You really think porn can compare to the pleasure of meeting someone potentially for marriage? You really think it can compare to having a fun time with your friends playing a certain sport? This is the thing. People start taking less action because they believe that life is so boring, I can't do anything, and porn is the only way to get pleasure. You're just so hyper focused on that because you've been told that. So change that, and you'll see that life has so much more to offer. Go and take that drastic action, like I told you in the middle of this video. Go and maybe book that flight ticket and travel the world. Go and build that project that you've been always passionate about. Maybe it's a software you want to build. Maybe it's you wanting to become a coach. It really saddens me that people hyper focus on trying to quit porn, and they think that porn is the most pleasurable thing they'll ever experience, when there's so much more to life. And it's not to say that those experiences will necessarily just cure your usage of porn, but it's to say that they will drastically change your life, and you'll see pleasure in a very drastic way. You'll see that porn has no pleasure. It doesn't even compare for a single second. And look, here's the thing. You're not broken, okay? You just have been programmed the wrong way. From all of these years of watching porn, you've been fed certain messages that over the years of consuming porn, you've maybe accepted. And the beauty of all of this is you can also learn to detach from these beliefs pretty easily, especially when you're watching videos like these where I pinpoint exactly what are these false beliefs that you must detach from. I actually created a community where I'll be coaching people in groups about how to quit porn, masturbation, lust, as well as all of the other bad habits you can think of, and as well as transforming your life, your lifestyle, who you are as a person, becoming more confident, becoming more worthy, achieving things. And that community will be linked down below. You can discover more, and I'll see you soon.